Hola y'all. My name is May Burke. If you are new here, welcome. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please give it a like. Consider subscribing to my channel. I'll link to a few more videos I've done already. Today's video is inspired by my upcoming celebration of giving my life to Christ and searching for sustainable long-term recovery for some of my mental health issues that I've struggled with for my entire life. My hope for today's video is that just one person will know that they are not alone, know that you can have a fulfilling, beautiful, God-honoring life, even in the midst of depression, anxiety, self-harm, suicidal thoughts, or behaviors. This is a part of my story that I believe brings honor to God, and I am so thankful that you have decided to give this video a watch by yourself or with your kid. Next week, September 6th through the 12th, is Suicide Prevention Awareness Week during Suicide Prevention Awareness Month. So that is also on my heart as I'm making this. Please pass this along to your friends who this testimony may resonate with, or your friends who have kids and they're unsure of how to approach these topics with them. I hope you enjoy today's video. I've separated some chapters, my testimony and my interview with my girls, so you can skip around to the parts that appeal to you most. Please be kind to yourselves and others in the comments. As always, thank you for watching. Before we start today's video, I want to give out a few disclaimers. Number one, I am not a medical professional. I am going to be sharing some experiences today solely from what I've lived through. So take what I say with that in mind. Number two, the content that I am putting out today may be triggering for some people. I trust that if you are a little one, you will grab your parents or send this link to them and have them watch it first to see if it's appropriate for you. If depression, anxiety, self-harm, or suicidal thoughts and behavior are a part of your day-to-day life right now, I want you to pause right here and think about whether or not inserting yourself into somebody else's story is appropriate for you right now. There is still many years down the line, lots of media that I cannot consume because these are still daily struggles for me. So being wrapped up in somebody else's story that is also going through this puts me in a really bad mental space. I know lots of people who have similar stories to me that are in a very different space than I am. Not healthier, better, worse, but they are able to consume media talking about these topics without being affected by it negatively. Number three, I will have my girls in today's video. They love YouTuber vlogs, bunny videos, smarter every day, different content like that, Minecraft videos. I have 7, 9, and 11-year-old daughters, and I'm going to shoot the next couple of things with discretion in mind that they are my and my husband's children. They will have stories of their own that they want to share one day, and I want them to be able to have their own platforms and their own avenues of telling those stories eventually. So while this video is about talking with your kids about these topics, I am going to include my kids, but I'm also going to protect the bulk of our conversation, just as a courtesy to them, while still showing you that these topics are not scary and totally possible. If you are new here, I am May Burke. I am a mom of 3. I have been a photographer for the past 10 years and I live in South Texas. Some of you may know this from following my social media for the past 10 years. Like I just said, that I have struggled with depression ever since I can remember. I started my photography career because I was at home with my youngest daughter, or oldest daughter at the time, and really going through it with postpartum depression. I did not know at the time that having a history of depression as a teen or young adult could lead to a higher risk of depression after having a baby. So I was really in it for about a year before I realized what was going on. I was under the assumption that just because I was married and in a good Christian community and now had children, that the thoughts that were made to feel as childish and immature in my teen years were invalid, and that they had no part of an adult life. There is normal teenage angst for every healthy child that is good to have, and almost a rite of passage, it seems like. But what I struggled with seemed to be different than that. It started around 4th or 5th grade and really intensified as I started puberty, and it really got a hold of me in middle school. It was around this time that I became addicted to self-harm, which I was also told was just a way to seek attention from the people around me. That never made sense to me because I was a really good student. I was in band, I was in sports, I was super involved in extracurricular activities. I did very well in school. I didn't have trouble getting my teacher's attention or my coaches or my instructor. I didn't understand why people were telling me that. I also want to point out that I tend to be very careful about how I say this story. I know that teens these days are exposed to a lot more than we were when we were on the internet in middle school and elementary school and high school. But I didn't find out about the means for my addiction until I was told about it in graphic detail on TV. So I try to leave those details out because I just don't want to be the catalyst for that. But I think that we can assume as adults what we're talking about here. I did reach a point in my freshman or sophomore year that this became a daily habit, and it was getting pretty intense. It got to the point where my wounds would open up through my clothes, and it would soak through my clothes, and I then garnered serious attention from my teachers, and I was actually sent to ISS for that, so in-school suspension, which to this day I'm still unsure of, but that was a policy at the time. It did not make me feel like I was being cared for. The amount of trouble that I got into over this issue just made me feel more shame about the subject. It was later in high school that I started becoming really active with my church, and I was promised that this was something that I could be free of. Organizations like To Write Love on Our Arms were coming up around that time, and I had a really good group of friends who were invested in seeing me get healthy. I will say that just because I stopped the physical act does not mean that I do not struggle with the urge to do that. The kitchen is a particularly trepidous place for me, especially because I cook 3 meals a day. Little burn, little nicks, they're still very triggering for me in the fact that my body finds that as a pleasure-seeking source. And I didn't really understand that until really the past 2 years, that I do still receive a kind of excitement and a kind of enjoyment from that stimulus. And that's something that I think a lot of self-mutilators aren't really taught about in their recovery process. It's something that I wish I better understood. It's also a part of why I enjoy weightlifting. I get pretty intense physical contact with a heavy weight, which can release the same kind of endorphins that I was getting from injuring myself. And in a healthy way. I don't get bruises. Sometimes my hands will rip, but that's a different thing. It doesn't produce that same kind of sensation. So I am aware that my sport helps that kind of release that I'm looking for. But even as a wife of 12 years, even as a mom of 10 years, someone with a successful career, I am also a coach at our CrossFit gym. I am involved in our church. All of these things that are healthy and good and help keep me sane don't keep me from thinking the thoughts that I think and feeling the feelings that I feel sometimes. So today I wanted to take you through 3 questions that you can ask your kids that may be daunting to you at first. And again, I want to preface all of this by saying that these topics are being addressed solely out of our experiences with our kids. My 7-year-old may be ready for a conversation that your 3-year-old is, or my 11-year-old could be ready for a conversation that your 17-year-old is, right? We all have individual children, but the great news is that you're their parents and you know them more than anyone else. So yes, while I hope that you are inspired to have similar conversations with your kids, especially during Suicide Prevention Awareness Month, I think that you can use your discretion to best figure out how and when and where to have these conversations with your kids. If anything, I hope that this is just some inspiration to get those conversations started. So this is how we do it in our family. Okay, so I have a question for you. You don't have to have like a right or a wrong answer about it, okay? You have to use your words. What do you think about when I ask you, what does mental health mean?
I'm not really sure, but I have guesses in mind.
So when we talk about mental health, we're talking about our thoughts and our feelings. Our mind. We're talking about our mind. So a good way to know if you have good mental health, do you remember what the fruits of the Spirit are?
Kindness, I think rejoicing, something like that.
Joy.
Joy, kindness, obedience, something.
We have joy, peace, patience, hope, goodness, gentleness, faithfulness, self-control, and love. Those are our fruits of the Spirit. And the way that I think of it is, you know, you have good mental health when you have those, when you have joy and peace and patience with other people and with yourself and hope, and you are able to be kind, you are able to be faithful in the things and the people that you're called to. When you are able to have all of those in balance, that's good mental health, right? That means your mind and your emotions are doing good. But when we have a lack of peace or a lack of patience or a lack of joy during times when we should have joy, or maybe if we're not able to love our family or friends or ourselves, we could say that our mental health is not doing really good. The ability to say, I know I'm doing good here, and I know I maybe could do better in this other place, that's a sign of good mental health. But sometimes we can't tell if it's good or bad, and that's a sign that our mental health isn't doing good. And so we need to talk to mom or sisters or somebody else that you trust. And saying, I don't know what's going on here, but maybe you could help point it out for me.
Sometimes I don't have my mental health, but sometimes I do. So yes, I do have mental health.
Yeah, you've got good mental health. That's good. Okay, Nora, what do you know about depression or anxiety?
Anxiety is when you're feeling really anxious and nervous, like something bad's gonna happen.
Mm-hmm.
Or you're gonna do something wrong. Depression means lonely, sad, alone.
Okay, those are good definitions. Yeah, anxiety is when we spend a lot of time thinking about something that hasn't happened yet. Good or bad, you just have your mindset on something that's going to happen in the future. And you're right, a lot of the times we're worried in the negative of what could go wrong. And then depression, you're right, it can look like loneliness and sadness, but it can also look like just not being able to be happy when we should be, or when there's things that we enjoy. And it might also mean not being able to get sad when things are really upsetting. It could be a complete lack of energy. It could just be kind of losing of yourself to when you're in a really low point. And it is very common for people to feel like this, but it isn't normal. Like, our bodies shouldn't always be in it. Lots of people go through it, and some people never deal with it in their whole life. Both me and Dad have dealt with it for a really long time. We go through periods of depression where we don't really enjoy the things that we like. Sometimes it's really hard for us to get out of bed. Sometimes it's a lack of motivation to really do anything, like maybe meal plan or get laundry done or go to the park with you guys. Sometimes it can show up like that. And sometimes it can make you feel really bad about yourself, about how you look, about how you think, about your friendships. It can kind of take over like this dark cloud of everything. And so you girls, knowing about the fact that Daddy and Mommy both have depression, you can do things to, one, see when it's coming and recognize, oh my gosh, this is that thing that Mom and Dad talked about, right? And know about it. But also we can do things before it ever happens, and we can know what to do during it, and who to reach out for help. Thanks, Mar. And I know that when you're having a hard time, you do reach out to us. What are some of the thoughts that you might have that you think maybe other kids have too? Like, you know, sometimes you've come to me and you said, well, I've had this feeling for weeks, but I didn't come to you. Or I've always thought this, but I didn't come to you. What do you think some kids are thinking when they're really having a hard time, but they don't get help?
I think they'd feel lonely.
Mm-hmm.
I'd think I would probably, once again, I would think about who their parents are like. I always know I can come to you because you're always there. But there's some kids who just aren't as lucky as I am.
Even with us, right? Even with us, there have been times where you're like, I have this feeling, but I haven't told you about it. Right?
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the things that you are thinking that make you feel like you can't tell me about it?
Sometimes I can get angry at you, and then I'm like, oh, I don't want to go talk to her.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually, I get over it by myself sometimes.
Yeah.
And sometimes you like do something really nice, and that makes me forgive you.
Yeah. What about, like, do you ever feel like if I tell Mom this, she'll think I'm bad? Or if I tell Mom this, she'll think I'm not telling the truth?
No.
No, you don't ever think that? That's good. That's good. That's part of having good mental health too, is being sure of yourself and not having doubt like that. Ever worry about what your sisters might think about if you tell us something you're struggling with?
Sometimes.
And sometimes kids feel like that about like if they're hurting themselves or if they're having a hard time, they think, oh my gosh, if my friends know this about me, they're gonna think that I'm weak, or they're gonna think that I'm dumb, or, you know, they're gonna think that I'm so weird, right? Kids don't want to feel weird to other kids. Right, but those are things that keep people from getting help. So if you are a good friend to somebody, you know, always letting them know that you like them for them, right? Not what they do for you or anything like that. Then they know that they have somebody to talk to. And you don't have to be that for everybody. But if you have become good friends with somebody, you know, that's part of them. And if that's something that they struggle with, that's the best thing that you can do is, you know, let them know that you like them for them. Even if they're weird, even if they're hurting, you can do what you can to help get them some help.
Yeah.
Okay, so if any of that ever comes up, you know where to find me. Probably in the kitchen.
Cooking up carnitas.
Yeah. My hope is that by watching this video, if my story is relatable for you or it helps shed light on somebody that you know, that you have the courage to seek help, know that there is a better future ahead of you, and know how to help your friends if they are ever in this situation.